Here we are, 5 days out from Texas, basically heading up and headlining the kickoff of the true college football season. I know we just had a college football weekend of week 0 this last weekend, and it was fun. Look, I'm not saying I wasn't happy about it. I'm not saying I didn't enjoy the game, but with the cockamamie backdrop of Ireland, makes you think that it didn't feel quite like college football. This weekend is about to feel like college football. And we had Coach Sark today meet with the media. We also had some player availabilities with Trey Wisner, Arch Manning, and Ethan Burke. An interesting development occurring kind of just in plain sight and underneath our noses along the Texas offensive line. And I feel like it needs addressing because it was something that I certainly had not foreseen. We're going to talk about all that. First, we need to tell you about our great sponsors, the Man Eye Institute. Make sure and give them a phone call, 844-WOW-2020, 844-WOW-2020. Our presenting sponsor here on Orange Bloods Live is the Man Eye Institute. Give them a phone call, 844-WOW-2020. See life better. All right, so no Cody today. He's traveling home from a weekend trip that he took. He should be back for the Tuesday show. And then, dude, by Tuesday, we're going to be Tuesday, Wednesday. So we're 5 days out from the Texas game, but we're only, Tuesday? So one sleep on Monday, one sleep on Tuesday, 3 sleeps away from getting to actually watch meaningful college football. There is a Thursday night game that I was able to get myself somewhat excited about. It was what was it? So Nebraska's playing at Cincinnati, or not at Cincinnati. They're actually playing at Arrowhead Stadium on Thursday night on ESPN, 8 p.m. Eastern time. And then, of course, on Friday, we're going to get Auburn at Baylor. So we get our first kind of SEC action there, and we get to see them go to Baylor to play in their little mini McMansion Stadium there on the Brazos River. So it's a lot of fun. We're back. We're right into it. We're back into our game week schedule. Next week, whenever we're doing this show, I will have already done the defensive portion of the deep dig for the Ohio State game. So it's like we're back, man. Steve Sarkeesian had his press conference today, a little bit different of a press conference as it was held at the Texas Football Hall of Fame there in the north end zone of DKR. So really, really good looking setup. They were busy having, I think it was a little bit more fancy today because they were announcing their partnership with this cardiovascular company, Human, HUMANN. And I don't know if I've just been living under a rock. I've never heard of this, but this is a giant deal that they signed. They're going to have their name on the actual, the field turf there on the stadium. And Sark gave them a big shout out today. He's had some cardiovascular stuff that he's dealt with, and he just says that a sponsor like that makes cardiovascular health a priority. He says it's a big deal, and he said all the players take their supplements. I went online to see what these things are. I guess it's this stuff that I hear the infomercials, not infomercials, but like these like super beats. I guess it helps with increasing your blood flow or something like this, but they sell it in powders and gummies, and it's just kind of interesting. I had no idea it was such a huge company, but there's your new sponsor. The one thing I found super interesting is it feels like that there's been a development with the depth on offensive line that I did not foresee, and I'm not sure that many people foresaw. But at this point, we can't ignore it. Whenever it was Chip Brown that was asking Sark, he said he asked who's standing out as like the number 3 offensive tackle, the number 3 offensive guard, just like the depth, right? People who are concerned about the depth that Texas has along the Texas offensive line with the injury to Andre Kojo, with the fact that Brandon Baker is it's not a true freshman, but he's truly a guy who's going to be getting his first action as a starter. Same thing with Nato Yamusalo. Not really the same thing with Trevor Gooseby. He's seen action, but it's there's some new pieces in place for sure. And so people are worried about, all right, well, what's the depth look like? All this. And the first word, once again, man, Sark mentions Connor Stroh, number 79. And what I found interesting about it is Chip asked the same question to Arch Manning at his breakout session after Coach Sark today, who's one of the depth offensive line guys who you've been impressed with. First guy that Arch mentions is Connor Stroh. So let's talk about that. Connor Stroh is a guy who came to Texas, and in his class, everybody knew this was going to be a developmental type of player. It was almost one of these guys that coming out, you say, okay, he's a monster. He's a absolute monster, right? He's like 6'7", 340 something pounds, but he, the knock on him coming out was kind of like one of these sort of two left feet kind of guys as far as his feet, his balance, his ability to just kind of set back and strike, like not very coordinated. But you said, if he can put it all together, and if Kyle Flood sees it, and then far be it for me to, insert my eval in here. And man, to think that guy, they're talking about him in front of other dudes who just like you've heard coming into this year, I'd heard more buzz. It felt like about guys like Nate Kibble, if we're talking about, players along the offensive lines interior. And I'm not sure whether or not it's just a function of there just really not being that many, right? That many guys to choose from, right? Because if I'm trying to pull up the depth chart right now, so I can just, so there's not anybody I'm forgetting, but if you just look at the guys across the front, the guys beneath them, as far as the interior guys, I mean, the only real candidates that you have are Connor Stroh, Nate Kibble, Connor Robertson, who he also mentioned, the second name that he mentioned. He mentioned Connor Stroh, Connor Robertson, and Jaden Chapman as the guys that he was impressed with. But besides that, you got Nate Kibble, you got Jackson Christian, who's a true freshman, Devin Coleman, who's a true freshman, and Daniel Cruz, who's a redshirt freshman / third string center. So a little bit of a limited pool to choose from. But I think it's just something that we need to keep monitoring, that, Connor Stroh is a player that we said, well, if he's able to get things right with his feet and his balance and his coordination, he's a monster. He can certainly the kind of guy that when he gets his hands on you, he can move you. And it's not like you have to be a ballerina to play, right guard. So just an interesting development there, something that I had not foreseen, but good news because he's coming along, and he was a guy that I said, if Texas does get something out of this player, it could be a boom bust type of situation. If that thing goes boom, it's a big deal. He also did mention, like we said, Connor Robertson, and it's kind of easy to understand why, because Connor Robertson is the player who, if something were to happen at either of the guards with Nato Yamuzulo or with DJ Campbell, that Cole Hudson would move to one of those guard spots from his starting center role, and Connor Robertson would get elevated. So what it shows you is that Connor Robertson he's a guy who's played famously. We saw him have to fill in for Jake Majors against Oklahoma that one season. So he's played, he's been in the program, and it goes to show you that Texas probably sees him as their sort of sixth guy, certainly their first interior offensive lineman up, because the fact of the matter is that when they want their best five on the field, they just get Hudson to one of the other guards, and they move Robertson up into the starting lineup. But to think that Connor Stroh, as far as the interior, probably number two, it's like, all right, man, that's a new, interesting development. I think also his mention of Jaden Chapman as the one who sort of stood out. Arch also mentioned Jaden Chapman. He's probably your swing tackle. I don't think that's going to be Nick Brooks at this point. I know that they messed around some with Nato Yamuzulo at tackle last week, but I think that probably Chapman is going to be your guy. And let's knock on wood and just hope, none of it comes to that. Some other interesting things I thought that Sark said today. So there was updates on Trevor Gooseby. He's going to be fine. No surprise there, right? I'd imagine we're going to see him in like a splint, but like he'll be fine. We told you not to worry about it. As far as Emmett Mosley, that he's been limited. No word from Sark on whether he's going to play. He's still up in the air. If this was a week wherever we were in SEC play and we were able to get injury reports, I would say that he'd probably be listed on the injury report as questionable. But Sark did say that he's going to get the opportunity to kind of round into form as the season progresses. He mentioned Matthew Golden as a guy who last year, he said that nobody asked a question about Golden for the first 4 weeks of the season. And by the end of the year, look where he was. And of course, if Emmett Mosley does something that's like 70% of what Golden did last year, as far as his progression through the season, it's like, then look out, dude, because that's quite a piece to add in there offensively. But it sounds like that's kind of where things are going to be with Mosley, as he's coming into the season limited. He did have an issue with this, not last year, but the year before, with the same leg. So hopefully he can get that under control. The other stuff, you know, he said that. Oh, well, the funniest one was Kirk Bowles. He asked him about the red zone. He just said, "What have you done to get this fixed?" And Sark said, "Do you care if I read a stat to you guys?" And he said, "You 2 years ago, we were 50% in our touchdown rate, our ability to convert touchdowns in the red area. Last year, we moved that thing up to 62%. So we are improving, but we're going to need to continue to improve." I mean, he had the whole thing completely ready to go. He knew that that was going to get asked. And it's like, it feels like it gets asked every time. That's the first time that it feels like he's ever just had to just come out and defend himself with some kind of stat like that. He's always said, he gets asked, he's like, "Well, we're looking to improve in every aspect of our game. It hasn't always been just down there in the red area. It's been our execution, and yada, yada, yada." And it takes all 11 guys and stuff. Like today was the first day. He's like, "Hey, man, like we're actually getting better with this." But I do think that, it's a fair enough question. One thing, one thing that I would kind of had in mind whenever I was looking at Sark today, and he was just talking about how, you're going to a 9-game schedule. What are you going to do about games like this in the future? What are you going to do whenever you have to go through the gauntlet, the total, just the week after week car crash and the rock fight that is every SEC game, even when you're going up against these teams that you would think. I was doing my SEC power rankings today for our first week of them on Orange Bloods, and you get down there like 10 and 11, and you're talking about like teams like Tennessee and Missouri and stuff that you could easily see being in the top 5, the top 6, and but you have to slot them somewhere, right? And you just think to yourself, like, that's, Texas won't be traveling to those places this year, but they're all like the future schedules are going to be littered with these types of games where it's like these teams are ranked lower than you, but they recruit really well. They got their 5 stars. And even though they're a little bit down in the pecking order as far as the SEC, they can step up and bite you. And you just wonder, with a schedule like that, do you really want to play these Ohio States? Do you really want to be doing this kind of stuff? And, Sark said, "Well, look, as far as the 9-game schedule and how that equates to these early games," he says, "I haven't spent 20 seconds thinking about that," which of course he's thought about it. Coach Sark's a football junkie, dude. That's the kind of stuff that he thinks about. He war games that stuff out. He's already thought about it. But he did say with these kinds of games, you love these kinds of games because it gets to show, where you are as a program. You mentioned last year what a big deal it was to go get that win up in Ann Arbor, to be able to go into that stadium, to be able to experience that kind of environment. He said that game, that Michigan game, he said was beneficial for them later on in the season, going to play A&M at Kyle Field. And we forget that A&M game was for all the marbles. It's like you look back at the game and like Texas handled them, but going into that game, it was a little bit nerve-wracking, man. That game was for a trip to Atlanta. CFP, all kinds of CFP implications. And he's like, that was a big game. He said that Michigan game got him ready for it. Now, if I were Sark, I wouldn't want to be playing Ohio State when I got 9 SEC games to play. I wouldn't want to be doing it. I bet you deep down, he probably thinks that if you're going to have to play some sort of Power 4 opponent, I would certainly prepare, I'd rather it be, some kind of middle of the road Big Ten team, middle of the road ACC team, something like it. You go figure out a way to play like North Carolina or something like that. But what he did say, and what I can wholeheartely agree with, is he's like, this for us, it's going to be big. We're going to have to get to the SEC schedule. We're going to have to play these games. We're going to have live bullets flying. We're going to be, people are going to be fast. They're going to be hitting hard. It gives us a good preview right off the bat about that. And it's their first game too, right? It's their first game too. And I got to thinking about it. And I was like, what a first game it's going to be. I was looking at the weather in Columbus, Ohio this weekend. Do you know that the lows up there are going to be like the low is 51 on Saturday? It could dip into the high 40s. Around game time, it's going to be like mid 60s. It's football weather, man. We've officially made it back. And if you have your fantasy football drafts this week, make sure to go to rosterwatch.com, download our cheat sheets. Thanks to everybody who's gone and done it. We know that you guys had tweeted at us with some of your drafts you pulled off using the cheat sheet, and they are absolute monsters. And the reason why is because we keep that thing constantly updated. We make sure that you're picking the best pick at every turn in your draft. Over 1 million people have downloaded it. They could not be wrong. Make sure to go download the Ultimate Draft cheat sheet at rosterwatch.com, and make sure to also check out Cody and I's Alpha Seasoning at alphaseasoning.com. Right now, just for you guys, we have a big sale going on. Use code KICKOFF at alphaseasoning.com. Get 20% off of whatever you order. 20% off right now with code KICKOFF. That's all the way through Labor Day. Make sure and get your elite spice blend for this weekend, because we all know that this weekend, again, just monster stuff coming up, right? I can't believe it, man. We said Thursday night, Friday night, then Saturday. You just hope that Texas gets the W versus Ohio State, and you can sit back and just enjoy Alabama getting to play Florida State, and of course Clemson versus LSU. I can't believe it, dude. We're back. Football's here, man. Love it. God bless you guys, dude. It's gonna be a big week coming up.